Hello knitters, Barbara Benson here. I'm an independent knitwear designer who also likes to make videos here on my YouTube channel, Watch Barbara Knit. Make sure to check in the description below the video because there's going to be a lot of links that you might want to take a look at that is very relevant to the how to knit the knit stitch demo that I'm fixing to put up. That is what we're doing today. This has been requested a lot, and this is your basic beginner how to make the knit stitch. I go through it step by step, very slowly, with both tensioning in my left and my right hand. I know a lot of my more seasoned knitters, this may not be something you really need, but I try to throw a couple tidbits in there so you might learn something. But what I would really like to ask from you is, a lot of new knitters are going to be seeing this video, so I would love for you to put your best tip or piece of advice to a new knitter in the comments. I would love to have new knitters finding this video, learning how to do the knit stitch and getting inspiration, encouraging words, tips, not huge, long things, just your number one tip or the number one thing you wish you had known when you were starting to knit. So, my new knitters who want to learn the knit stitch, I'm going to go right to the video, but make sure you check the description and the comments because they're going to be chock full of knitting knowledge from all across the world, is my guess. So here's the demo. To start with, we have our stitches, our cast on stitches on one needle, and we have an empty needle. So there are two needles. I am using a circular needle, but we are going to knit flat. All it is these two needles are connected by a long cable, but I'm not going to be knitting in the round. You can knit flat on circular needles. So we have our cast on stitches on our what is going to be called left hand needle, which means it is going to be the needle that is held in your left hand. To start with, I am going to tension my yarn in my left hand, which is called Continental knitting. The way I tension my yarn is I put the working yarn, which is the yarn coming from the ball, over my pointer finger, under my middle finger, over my ring finger, and under my pinky. And let me do that. Dun, 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 dun. And then I curl my pinky in, which is what creates my tension. I have a whole video on how to hold tension and why you should hold tension. But for here, what it helps is it helps in the formation of your stitch. You want this yarn that is being held by your fingers to have a tension to it. You don't want it super tight. You don't want to choke it. You don't want this to be super stiff, but nor do you want it to be all floppy like that. If it's floppy, you're not going to be able to grab a hold of it. So I'm holding my yarn under tension. Then I take my empty needle in my right hand. This is called your right hand needle. Now, let's look at our first stitch. This is the first stitch on our left hand needle. It is the stitch that the yarn has just made when you finished casting on. If you look here, see how there are little bumps along the back and a little cable on the front? This is the right side of the cast on I used. So you take your right hand needle and we're going to insert it from left to right through this front leg of the knit stitch. Now, knit stitches have what people call legs. If you can see, I'm going to pull it out a little. You've got, this is the front leg, and the leg that is back here On the back side of your knitting, or what is called the wrong side, is your back leg. Or you can also call it front loop and back loop. So we are going to knit through the front loop. So you insert your needle from left to right through that stitch, and you make an X or a T, however you want to think about it. But you take your two needles and you make them cross, with your right hand needle being beneath your left hand needle and the yarn going around both. Then you take your working yarn, you want to lay it across and pull it around. We are wrapping it counterclockwise around the right hand needle. See how that goes across? And then I brought my hand back and grabbed onto my needle, and I'm still holding it under tension. Now this is where it gets confusing. We are going to create the new stitch with this working yarn. So what you have to do, and I find it helps to keep tension with this right finger, you have to pull your right hand needle down and catch that strand that's wrapped and pull it through the old loop, the stitch that we were making the stitch into. See how I pulled that through? Let me pull it open so you can see. I'm gonna pull my needle out and pull it so you can see it going back through. See where it came from? Let's try that again. We're going to insert it from left to right, crossing underneath the left-hand needle, wrapping counterclockwise until it's around. And then this is the tough part. This is where, here, I'm going to move it all the way out to the point, so hopefully you can see it easier. You do not want to work out on the points, because that's when you lose stitches off the front of your needle. So we're inserting left to right, wrapping, and see, pulling, that is where that loop is coming from, and you pull it through. I'm taking my needle off, so I really want you to be able to see it. This loop is the one we just pulled through the loop that was on the needle. So insert left to right, wrap, pull through, and you can see how close to the tip that gets. That's where your tension helps you. You pull it through and then push your needle all the way through so that your working yarn, your new stitch, is all the way down here on the barrel of your needle, which is what sets the size of your stitch. You don't want to keep it on this point. And at that point, you slip the first stitch, the stitch you knit into, off of the end of your left-hand needle, and we have our new stitch. Now we can see the next stitch we're going to work into. Since it's the second stitch, you can really see that opening a lot better. So what we're going to do is insert our right-hand needle, the point of it, into that hole. This is the front leg, and you can see the back leg peeking right there. So insert it from left to right, wrap counterclockwise, and here you're going to be able to see it better, hopefully. See, hang on, wrap and pull it through. You're pulling that yarn through that hole, the center of the loop that's on the needle. Pull it through, and remember, all the way down here. Insert left to right. See, we're opening up that hole. And we are grabbing this yarn. This is the working yarn, and oops, I see, and it slipped off. That's okay, you got to get used to this. Let me get real close. So you grab that yarn, whoop, grabbing doesn't work for me, and pull it through. This is where the loop is this. This is the new loop. Now, I'm going to show you how to do it with holding the yarn in your right hand. So this, I am not as good holding the yarn in my right hand. I wrap the yarn around my pinky, and then it goes under and then over this, my pointer finger. But it works the same way. And I keep my thumb here so these stitches don't come off. So you insert through that hole. We're definitely wanting to go through this front leg. If you find yourself trying to go, you're going left to right. If you find yourself going this way, you're going through that back loop, which is a type of stitch, but it is not your standard. That is going to twist your stitch. So put it in that hole from left to right, make your X or your cross, and then you take your yarn, and when you're holding it in your right hand, it goes underneath your right hand needle and then up and over. And so we're wrapping counterclockwise again. You hold your tension and then you pull that loop through. You can really see that the yarn is going from my finger through the old stitch and making our new stitch. And then you slide it off. Do that again. Here is our old stitch. This is the stitch we're going to knit into. Push it through the hole, under the needles. And I'm going to make a big motion here. You can see I completely took my hand off the right hand needle. We want to wrap it from underneath, left to right. And then, see how, oh, and I lost it. I'm not very good at the right hand one. So do it again. And you have to keep that little loop. See how my tip of my right hand needle is touching my left hand needle? That's how I'm trying to trap it. And then I insert and slide that right hand needle up, and that makes that loop the right size. Let's try that one more time. Insert left to right, make an X, wrap your needle from below up, around counterclockwise, pull it through, push that all the way up, and see you haven't lost any stitches yet because the parent stitch is still, the stitch that we're working into is still on the left hand needle. I can see here that I have my new stitch on my right hand needle, and once we've seen that, you know you can pull it off. Now, I'm going to go back to tensioning my yarn in my left hand, and we're going to go back to that. So, insert left to right, make an X, wrap your yarn from left to right, pull it through. See right there? See that hole? See, I'm pulling that loop through the hole. Shove that right needle up so it's around the barrel. And that is how we do it. I'm going to knit a few more. Oops, look at that. Since I got so close to the tip, that left-hand needle stitch popped off the needle without me knitting it. Okay? Don't panic if that happens. All you have to do is take your left-hand needle. Now I'm putting my thumb on here, and put it back in that hole and slide it back on. What you want to make sure is that your front leg is still in the front and your back leg is still in the back. If you slipped it off, and instead of, you have to insert this left hand needle from the front of the stitch if you insert it through the back of the stitch, look, your stitch is backwards. This should be in front. This should be in back. This is what's called a reversed mounted stitch. And actually there's some people who knit this way, but the way I'm showing you, you don't want it like that. If you ever run across a stitch that is mounted that way, all you have to do is take your right hand needle, pick up this from behind, flip it around, stick it back on your left hand needle. And there it is mounted correctly. So we're going to insert, wrap, pull through. Insert left to right, wrap left to right, pull through all the way onto the barrel. Insert, wrap. I'm just getting to the end of the row because once you have done all your knit stitches and you're to the end of the row, you will find your left hand needle is empty and your right hand needle is full. When you hit this point and you're knitting flat, all you have to do is put your empty needle down and switch that needle to your left hand. And now it's your left hand needle. You have flipped it. This is called turning at the end of the row when you are knitting. Now your yarn is here. Your yarn, when you start a new row, your yarn has to be coming off your left hand needle. I'm retensioning. Now, I want you to look at these stitches. Look how different they look. If I flip this back over, you can see how it's sort of smooth. See how the bottom of the stitch is like a horseshoe. It's open. This is your knit side. You're looking at a knit stitch. When you flip it over, the back of your knit stitch is a purl stitch. These little bumps, see how instead of it being open at the bottom, it has this little bump that is called a purl bump, and this is the purl side. Purl is also a separate stitch, which we will get to in a different video, but purl is also the back side, the reverse of a knit stitch. So it's going to look different when you want to knit into it. We have, see how it's choked off here? It makes it a little more challenging to locate where it is you need to insert. You're inserting above this bump. You're still going through this front leg and you're still going left to right, but even especially on this first one, it's going to take a little wiggling to get your insert from left to right, but it's the same. You go left to right through that front leg. You've got your yarn, wrap it left to right, and pull it. See how big that is? Pull it through. Okay. Let's do that again. See, now this is the purl bump. We don't want to mess with it. We want to insert above the purl bump, below the needle, left to right, wrap from left to right, pull through. Pull your new loop, which is being created by the working yarn, through the old loop. Let's put the yarn in our right hand, even though I'm not very good at it. Okay, same. Insert right hand needle from left to right, Now remember, with the yarn in our right hand, we have to go underneath the needle first, wrap up and around, left to right, pull that through. Push it all the way up so it stays on here and you don't lose your stitch. Again, left to right, right hand needle underneath left hand needle, wrap, starting under, left to right, pull that through. You see how that is, see where that is, see where my working yarn is, see the new stitch being born. Keep on pushing, pull it through. Under, left to right, pull through. New stitch. Let's go back to the left hand. We're going to insert left to right. And as you can see, because I'm holding the yarn in my left hand, that working yarn is already underneath the needle, which is why we don't have to do that step. We just have to wrap left to right and make sure you catch it and pull that through. Left to right. See, I'm pulling that loop through the other loop. And there we go. That is the knit stitch, both Continental and English style. When you get to the end of your needle, it's just like the first row. Now that all the stitches are in your right hand needle needs to flip over and become your left hand needle. Now, I want you to see this right here. This is where a lot of knitters get their extra stitches when they're starting. You see how it looks like there's two legs right here? Here's our working yarn. If when you turn your needle over, you take your working yarn and pull it back like that, you've rotated your stitch and you're looking, this is the bottom of your stitch. When you rotate your needle, this yarn needs to be pulled underneath, push that down so that we only have that one stitch. See, this is all goobery and big. It's just because I've been doing it so loosely to show y'all. But here, let's pull that back down. There we go. That looks better, but make sure you don't do that. Make sure the yarn is coming from underneath the needle, not stretching the bottom of your stitch. You're in the position to pick up your right hand needle and start knitting. When you are knitting flat and you knit every row, it is called garter stitch. A lot of garter stitch looks like this. And what you're seeing here is mostly purl bumps. If I stretch it out, you can see these ones that are open on the bottom? That is the knit stitch. And the ones with the little necktie, the one with the little bump, that is the purl stitch. But it's just the back side of the knit stitch. And garter looks the same on both sides. So knitting every row is garter stitch. If you knit your front, and then when you learn purl your back, you get something called stockinette. Stockinette is when you're looking at the front of your work, all you see is knit stitches. All you see is this pretty little V shape. See, it's like, or what I called it is a horseshoe. See how it's open on the bottom and all you're seeing is knit, 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 knit. But when you're knitting flat, the way to achieve that is knitting on the right side and purling on the wrong side. So all we're seeing is purls. I hope that helped you towards your goal of being able to do the knit stitch. I went through it very slowly. I am a little bit worried. My voice might have gotten a little too teachery if you know what I mean. But I was just trying to be calm and present calmly because it's knitting and it's fun. And I know that when you're starting out, it can be very frustrating. So again, I hope that my long-term viewers have dropped some knitting wisdom in the comments. I encourage new knitters to read those. And if you have any questions about anything I said, please ask them in the comments, and either I or hopefully one of my viewers will answer. If you would like to continue to ask questions and or share your knitting journey, I would love for you to come over to the Watch Barbara Knit Facebook group, where we have a lot of fun and can share pictures, because sometimes the only way to diagnose an issue is with a picture. The link to the Watch Barbara Knit Facebook group is in the description notes below the video. Also, links to where you can get my patterns to knit up for yourself and how to support me on Patreon. If you like this video, give it the thumbs up, click that like button, and if you would like to be notified whenever I upload a new video, please subscribe to my channel and select notifications. Selecting notifications really helps me because it tells the YouTube algorithm that yes, please, I want more of this, and it will show me to more people. So thank you so much.